you're developing your contracting strategy. So now we're in the part 2, right? Because we're in the second after lunch now, so we're in part 2. So you can find this part of the presentation in the second session. So you've heard about me already, so I'm going to dive in there. So how do you get to the millions and billions in the government space? So how do you get to DC? If you want to be a $1 million corporation, how do you get to DC? And so where are we? We're right here, right? Atlanta, Georgia. And DC is up here. That's called the Beltway Bandits. You guys heard that terminology before? The Beltway Bandits? Do you know why they call it Beltway Bandits? Not necessarily, but because in DC there's the Beltway, kind of like we have the I-285 here. That's the Beltway here. Well, they got the DC Beltway. Every business within a radius of that Beltway, many of them are government contractors, and they're running away with this money. I mean, because they're right there in the heart of the capital. They're right there in the heart of government contracting. And so now in the South, we have another center like that. You guys know what that is?
Alabama.
Alabama, but what city?
Huntsville.
Huntsville. So Huntsville is many of the businesses in Huntsville are government contractors. Because you got, NASA there, you got Redstone Arsenal, you got a lot of military installations there. And so if you're in that area, the biggest industry is the government. So we want to go to DC. Your business, you want to go to DC. Now, we're fortunate that we're in Atlanta, because in Atlanta, if in the state of Georgia, do you guys know who the largest government federal buyer is in the state of Georgia? Any guess? Nope, that's the contractor that's winning the most contract. But which agency is awarding the most contract?
CDC.
CDC. See, Josh, you're speaking Governese. So the CDC is the largest agency, or not the largest agency, but the agency that's awarding the most government contracts. And from time to time it may change, but consistently they have been the largest in terms of awarding contracts. So, but ultimately we want to go to DC. And so how do we get to DC? What's your strategy? How are you going to get there, right? You may choose to walk. Now, walking to DC, about how many miles is that? That's about 800 miles or so? 600 miles?
It takes about 14 hours.
So,
12, 14.
yeah, so that's about... So walking, how long will it take to walk? Maybe 2 weeks?
About a month.
2 months? Some of us will never make it, right? So you can choose to, part of your strategy is, hey, I'm gonna get my buddy and we're gonna walk to DC. We're gonna put on a backpack and we're gonna take the Appalachian Trail there, and you can take that path. Or you might say, hey, you know what? I've got a better idea. Let's take Megabus, and it's what 85 cents for to ride Megabus, $1, something like that, right? and you can say, hey, my budget is low, but I got to invest in myself, and I don't want to walk. I know that is almost impossible. It's possible, but it's almost impossible. I'm going to take the bus. But in the bus, they have multiple stops, and it takes you longer to get there. But that is a strategy to get there. Or you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get my car, and I'm going to drive up there. In fact, instead of taking my car, I'm just going to rent a car. $35 a day, unlimited miles. I'm going to take a car. I'm going to go up there for 3 days and get to meet contracting officers and so forth. So that's another way to get there. You say, hey, I got a better idea. I'm going to fly up there. Now, I can't get first class where the seats are wide and it's comfortable. You got leg room, right? I have to say that all these vehicles, cars and airplanes, it's probably offshore engineers like me that designed those. Because we got in there, we sat in and said, oh, lots of leg room. And we need to have taller people become engineers, because they sit in this and say, oh, man, we need more leg room here. So you can take a plane there, and you can fly there. Now, plane, instead of a bus might take you about 2 days, a car might take you about 13 hours. Josh said he can do it in 5 hours. Or you can take a plane, which is about 2-hour flight. But to do this, what do you need? A GPS, right? You need some type of GPS to help you get there, because if without a GPS, you might end up in Canada. Because you know it's north somewhere, right? Northeast somewhere. And you might get to the Great Lakes somehow. So, but you need a GPS. Or you might need a pilot if you're on a plane. If you're in a bus, there's a pilot or driver in that situation. So there's many different ways of how you get there. So ultimately, it comes back to what's the quickest path to money. So you really want to have multiple strategy. Your first strategy is, how am I going to get to money the fastest way? And that's your first strategy. And then you also want to have a strategy that says, what's the best long-term strategy? Because the shortest way to money is not necessarily the most sustainable way to money, right? You can go out there and do teaming. And if you team up with another company, that's quick, because you don't have to know how to write a proposal. Your teaming partner needs to know how to write a proposal. That's a good way to get to the contracting dollars faster. But if you want to be sustainable, you have to learn how to write proposal, or you have to hire a proposal writer. Now, just so you know, a proposal writer, generally a newer proposal writer is somewhere about $40 to $75 an hour. An experienced proposal writer is $150 to $300 an hour. So I know a proposal writer that charges about $300 an hour, but they're very good. And so it just all depends on your budget and the strategy you want to have. And then you want to choose, after a while, you want to determine what is the most optimal path for growth for your company. And that's a combination of short and long-term plan. There's a combination of teaming, subcontracting. It's a combination of different strategies together. So let's dive deep into your short-term strategy. So to identify your short-term strategy, you got to find similar-sized company and then model after them and learn, right? Because what we did earlier, we looked at the 20-point assessment. And so what you want to do is you want to use that and find different companies that are successful and say, okay, what are they doing that's successful? And we'll look at a few examples. What are they doing that's making them successful? Which agency are they working with? What contracts do they have? What certifications do they have? What teaming partners are they working with? And so I don't like to reinvent the wheel most of the time, unless you can build a better mousetrap, right? Did you know if you want to build a better mousetrap, there's over 4,000 mousetraps in the U.S. Patent Office? How many different ways can you catch a mouse, right? Well, there's over 4,000 ways to catch a mouse. So unless you want to build a better mousetrap, I say just go get a mousetrap that already exists. Figure out what they're doing to be successful. Benchmarking is an easier way. So benchmarking is great. Obtaining certification is another great short-term strategy. Who has certifications? Anybody have certifications yet? No one have certification yet? Okay, Chris, which one do you have? The women-owned certification. That's the easiest one to get if you're a women-owned business. It could take you less than a week to get in the system and certified. That's it. Get all your paperwork together, submit it, and boom, you're done. That easy. So they're actually updating to a new system, and so it's certified.sba.gov. So that's a new system. It used to be GLS, but they're migrating over to a new platform. So it's certified.sba.gov. And you can get certified as a woman-owned. You can get certified as an 8A company. All the certification, which one's the best? All the certifications out there. Anybody know? Did Myra cover this earlier?
Yes.
Which was the best?
She said 8A, but also woman-owned is just as good now.
8A is the best. Don't worry about what anybody else says. Not necessarily not invalidating what Myra says. The SBA says what Myra says. Everybody, all the government, they're supposed to say that they're all equal. Because if you're talking to anyone in the industry, they can say, oh, they're all equal. But through practice and through seeing businesses out there and understanding contracting officer, which one they like to use the most, 8A is the one they like to use the most. So, and I would say all the other three are very equal, even though the government try to treat all four equally. There is 8A is utilized more often. So obtaining certification is a very good short-term strategy. Subcontracting with primes. Now, why would that be a good short-term strategy?
That way you can get experience in past.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Yes, all the pressure's not on you, right? You don't need to know how to write a proposal to do government work. Because the large company already did the hard work. They won the contract. And now they're looking for subcontractors. And what percentage are they required to work with in terms of small business? Nope, the other number. 23 is what the government, their goal is. Large companies are required to sub about what percent? 35%.
35.
So large company, they have to subcontract work out 35% to small businesses. And so, and some of that has to be woman-owned business, some of them have to be veteran business, some of them have to be 8A companies.
I had a question about that. Who holds them accountable? Who checks behind to see if they've met those set-aside goals?
It's supposed to be the government, but you know how that works, right? Sometimes not, there is a website called ESRS, the Electronic Subcontracting Reporting System.gov. And all large primes and subcontractors are supposed to submit into that database, but they're not using it. And so now they're actually trying to do it through, I think, USA Spending, but that's a whole nother story. It's kind of like diversity program in the commercial market. It's more of a volunteer still, even though the regulations that you should, but no one's really meeting all those goals. And part of it is as low as they can say, well, we did 3 outreach this year, and we had 5,000 women business that we talked to, and we're sorry, we just couldn't find any qualified women business to work with. And so as long as they can demonstrate that they're making the effort, but someone need to hold them accountable. So large companies, subcontracting with them is a good strategy. And then understanding how to use teams and joint ventures and mentor-protege partnerships, because this is very important also. So going back to the large companies, they have proposal writers. Remember the $750,000 of investment you have to make in your company? Well, you don't have that as a small business. Now, I might be surprised some of you may, so I'm not going to assume that all small businesses don't have that kind of money, because Danielle might say, hey, I got that. But in terms of most, you don't have $750,000. You can't go and hire a capture manager. You know how much capture manager costs? $120,000 to $150,000.
Wow.
That's more than some of you pay yourself. So you can't hire those people. And so by working with a large company, they have a capture manager. They're out there working. They're out there building relations with government. And so you're using that. And then you get to learn. Building team is the same way. Building a team, a partnership in the government space, based on what I see consistently, based on my experience, probably 60% to 70% of all government contracts require some type of teaming, some type of partnership. So for example, if you're in the health and medical side of government contracting, the VA might need someone to handle their whole wounded warrior initiative. And from that, it requires transporting them from their home to the VA hospital. But it requires not only just transportation, right? It requires financial training. It requires workforce development. It requires entrepreneurship training. It requires resume writing services. And so if you are a transportation company providing medical transportation and so forth, that means if to go after that contract, you need 3 or 4 other teaming partners to be successful at that. So that's one industry. Let's say construction. If you're in construction, and the building across from us there, that's the FBI building. So It's an unmarked FBI building. Let's assume that the FBI say, hey, that building's getting a little too old and they want to renovate it. To renovate it, do they need a plumber? Yes. So if you're a plumber, they need you, right? Do they need an electrician? Do they need a drywall person? Do they need a flooring specialist? Do they need concrete masonry? Do they need a roofer? They need all those things. So if you are a plumber, does that mean you don't bid on the project? No, that means you need to team up with other businesses. And so you have a few choices. You can either position yourself as a general contractor so that you can look like you can do all of that work, or you can team up with a general contractor or team up with 2 or 3 other companies so that you can meet all the requirements. That's called teaming. And teaming is a very powerful tool. Now, joint venture is a step more closely than teaming. So subcontracting is somebody wins and you sub with them. That's subcontracting. Teaming is 2 companies comes together and you actually create a document, a teaming agreement, binding the 2 companies to work together on that one specific project. So that's a teaming relationship. A joint venture, you take it a step further than that. In a joint venture, you form a new company. So it will be Chris, your company, and it will be Trina, your company. And you form a new company called Chris Trina LLC. And the new company is, you can do it where it operates by itself, or you can do it to where both of you operate the company. And that company's job is to go and win contracts for the benefit of both your companies. And that's acceptable in the government space. That's normal practice.
Both of them have to be certified separately, or is that one company, joint company together, and they have to get certification under that?
Oh, that's a very good question. So let me explain to you how joint venture and teaming works. So in a joint venture, let's assume Trina is 8A certified and Chris is Service Disabled Vet.
Okay.
When you form a joint venture, the joint venture takes on both characteristics of both companies. So in the eyes of the joint venture, they're a Service Disabled Vet and they're a 8A certified company.
Okay.
And all the past performances of both companies come into that company. So it's a very powerful tool. Very powerful tool in that way.
Is it realistic for a joint venture companies that come together to continue to stay in business and maybe do future projects, or do you just?
No, there's limitations to it.
There are limitations.
There's some limitations. The SBA will only allow a joint venture to do 3 projects together. So after 3 projects, guess what you do, Chris? Nope. You file new LLC. Chris Trina LLC, or Chris Trina 2 LLC. Chris Trina 3 LLC. All right? Because it's a new company and you're allowed to do another joint venture. So one joint venture can only go after 3 projects.
Okay, so in essence, we can look at 9 projects.
You can go forever.
Let's keep changing your name.
Just
Gotta keep changing.
Chris Trina 200 LLC.
Okay, okay.
So
Now, how does that work? So you would get a new DUNS number and all?
yes.
that? Okay.
So there is some maintenance involved and so a little bit more administration to support it. Yeah. But that gives you the strength of both companies. Now here's how you do this here though. You take it a step further than that. And the next step further than that is you go with a large company. And so you're the small company and you're the protege and you team up with a large company and they're the mentor. And the mentor protege, you actually form a joint venture together. And so if they have 500 employees, guess what? You're treated as you have 500 employees. If they've been in business for 50 years, your small business is treated as you have 50 years of past performance. So it's a very powerful tool.
What's the benefit to being, for a larger prime, to be a mentor to a smaller
They got,
company?
what percentage must they award?
Well, no,
Sub
what's the
out?
advantage?
No.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
35%. So the advantage is they get to meet the requirement. That's the first requirement, right? That's the first advantage. The second is for the smart companies out there, those smart large companies out there, they have a diversity program. Now, in the government, they don't call it diversity program. They don't call it the diversity manager. They call it the SBLO, the Small Business Liaison Officer. And so but there are other titles called diversity manager, but just for the purpose of government contracting, they're called the SBLO. And sometimes they're called the subcontracting manager. All those three titles are usually synonymous with each other. So for the large company, the first is 35% requirement. Now, those that are smart, they utilize the small 8A company to go win contracts. Because they're not 8A. And they can't win sole source contracts. But if the 8A, they have a relation with the 8A company, the 8A can go and win a sole source contract up to $4 million. Now they get to do 49%. So that's about $1.9 million that they found by working with a small company. So they're in it for selfish reasons. So yeah, it's part of compliance, but part of it is they use it as an initiative to go win more contracts, and because they understand that. Now, some of them don't understand that, and so they don't utilize it for that purpose, but the large companies that really understand government contracting, they use that for that purposes. Now, the other reason is that if it's a DOD, mentor protege, the large company gets tax credit. So those are other reasons. So there's multiple advantages and reasons why they do that. So very powerful tools here in terms of being a subcontractor, setting up teaming agreements, setting up official joint ventures, and then forming a mentor protege. The mentor protege program right now is only used for the 8A program. They are supposed to start doing it for SDVOSB as well as the women-owned program. So those are new initiatives that they will start to roll out. Okay, so some long-term strategies. So part of long-term strategy is you want to find some large companies out there in your industry. So what's a large company in your industry, Deanna? Do you know any large companies in your industry?
The Department of,
Large.
Health and Hospital.
Okay, let me restate that. Large companies in your industry, not agency. Large companies in your industry. Kaiser, okay. So Kaiser is one of the largest, organization in your industry.
Yeah, I can think of right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, they're nationwide. They're pretty big.
Yeah.
So if you want to, benchmark after them, and you want to go in there and say, okay, so are they doing government contracting work? If they are, which agency are they working with? And you can benchmark after them. In fact, there's a company right here in this building. You remember Mark? When Mark said that he came and did some work with me when I was doing consulting, well, there's a lady in this building. She came and did consulting work for us also. She said, hey, Abe, I want to learn government contracting, and I'm semi-retired, and I want to just come and work for free. That's what she did. She said, I want to come and work for free for you guys because I want to learn government contracting. Kind of like what you're doing a little bit, Danielle, right? You start off by just volunteering and learning from people. So she came and worked for free for us. And she worked, and after a few months, she said, oh, you know what? I'm ready to flatten my wings. So she went out there and got her company certified at the local level, and then she went and got her 8A certification, and she is winning millions of dollars. And so she moved into this building, into an office about twice the size of this room here. So now she just added another whole, like a big office about this size here now. So huge. So she's growing. She's adding staff, and she's multi-million-dollar corporation now. So there's lots of examples of that. But at some point, you're going to be a large company, and you need a small business program. And so that's how you can grow continue. And then the small business program is also a diversity program. They're all really the same thing. And then you need to have a succession plan. And a succession plan, one of the best succession plan is to what? Sell it. That's one of the best succession plan you can have. Now, so I'm going to tell you a quick story about General Johnson, right? First of all, there's not that many African-American generals to start off with. But General Johnson retired from the Army, And he started his company right here in Atlanta in 1995 with his 2 sons. And they call it the Eagle Group. Didn't win any contracts. And then by 2000, they were doing about 20 million. So about 5 years later, they were doing about $20 million as a company. And by 2008, they were doing about $123 million in revenue. And then Lockheed Martin bought out the Eagle Group. And so now General Johnson, he got to retire twice. Once from the Army, and the second time from his own company. And they said that he sold it for an undisclosed amount of money. And so now he's truly retired on the beautiful beach. He lives in South Carolina right now, out close to the coast. So that's a good exit strategy, right? Build a company and sell it. Or what's another exit strategy?
Pass it on.
Yes, build a legacy company and keep it in the family, or get it public, go IPO. There's other strategies like that. And so as a business, you gotta think about your strategy before you get started. And that's part of your vision, right? If you don't have a plan and don't have a vision, it's hard to get to where you want to go. So in terms of your succession plan, I want to make sure that all of you think far ahead. And if you, kind of like what you asked a very important question, Chris. Well, what happens when I grow out of my 8A? I'm glad you're thinking ahead. Because you're thinking like, I mean, most people just say, I just want my 8A. They're not thinking beyond. They don't have a succession plan. And so having that allows you to grow and continually to keep on going. So if you want to build a legacy company, there's certain things you put in place. If you want to build and sell, there's certain things you want to put in place. For example, building a legacy company, and you want to keep, you may not want to go large. You may want to keep it at $20, $30 million a year, create a lifestyle for yourself and for your family and for generations to come, but you don't want all the headache of a publicly traded company. Or if you want to sell, when a large company buys your small government contracting company, what do you think? Are they buying? Are they buying you, or what are they buying?
The company,
They're buying the company. So what in the company are they looking for?
certification?
Nope. Because they're a large company. So they can't buy certification, because once you leave, the certification is gone.
Okay.
Yep. So what are they really buying? Name is not that, name is not even that important. Credibility, because they have a better name than you do. They're a large company. Lockheed has a better name than Eagle Group, right? Past performance, but more important, why past performance? What do you have?
Whatever the industry that they don't have, they need.
Yes, so that's a very important point there. Let's assume the Eagle Group is very strong with logistics, moving products from one place to another, from Fort Benning in Columbus, Georgia, to Fort Knox in Kentucky. They're good at moving things. They're good at moving things to the Savannah port and moving it to Afghanistan. They're good at moving things around like that, right? That's their greatest strength. Let's assume that. Well, and Lockheed says, you know what? We want to grow our logistics department. Well, instead of going and taking 5 years to build up the logistics department, they just go buy a company like that. I mean, Lockheed is when we look at the numbers, $120 million Eagle Group sounds like a lot of money. But when you compare that to Lockheed Martin, $45 billion. That's like a little drop to them, right? And so
The infrastructure.
they're buying the infrastructure.
Okay.
They're buying infrastructure, but practically they're buying the supply chain that you've developed, the system that's in place, and they're buying relationships, because you have relationship in the agencies already, because government contract is won through relationships. Sole source contracts are won through relationships. It's not one because someone just, a contracting officer saw that you're an 8A company and they just send it to you. That does happen, but that's like rarely ever happen. Usually it's because you have a relationship with them. So when a large company is buying your small company, they're buying your infrastructure. They're not buying you, because they know you're not there. You're going to leave. So they're buying your systems, they're buying your relationships. Think about it from the commercial world. Why do people buy a McDonald's franchise?
It's already in place.
Part of it is the reputation, but more important than even the name. What are they buying? The systems. They're buying the systems that McDonald's says, you know, at McDonald's, think about this, sir. McDonald's can take a high school student who can't clean up the room. And you take that same high school student, the mom and daddy, even though they get whooped, they're not going to clean the room. You take that same person, you put that in McDonald's, is McDonald's successful?
Yes.
Absolutely. Why? They have a system. It's not people dependent anymore. It's system dependent. And so if you want to sell your company down the road, your succession plan is, I have to build a business where I'm not needed anymore. And it doesn't matter who the people are, because we have a system. So you bring in a high school student, and you put them at McDonald's. The first thing they train you is the French fry station. Is that all I want you to do for the next 2 days?
Yeah.
Is I want you to, when the fries are cold or when it's all gone,
Pretty soon, we'll be on break.
Exactly.
yeah.
Now I'm on lettuce.
Work at McDonald's.
So you got to give them a vision, right? You got to give them a vision. So anyone can learn a system. And so that's how you want to build your company. Put systems in place. All right, so let's continue here. So in terms of strategies, this is some of these things that's happening here. You got to follow the flow of money. Because if you track the flow of money, then you know how to build a strategy around that. So what do I mean by the flow of money? So let's take construction as example. The flow of money goes from the Mark with PBS, right? He works with Public Building Services. He said, oh man, we have a roof leak. So if we follow the flow of money, roof leak is minor, so they have a discretion. That might be a $20,000 roofing project. So they have a discretionary budget, and so if you follow the money, they can say, hey, you know what? We need to get that money, and we need to find a roofer to come and do this project. So if you follow that how money flows to roofers, that's one way. Because they have a need, they get it from the department, and it goes through a procurement process, it goes to the business. But let's assume they say, hey, we want to build a whole new building. The flow of money is different, right? If you follow the flow of money, it goes from, it's a $20 million project, not a $20,000 project, $20 million. Now it has to go through 2 years of appropriation. Congress has to say, okay, hey, this agency needs more money because they didn't want to build this $20 million building. We need this to support this initiative. And so in that situation, it goes from that to where it goes to the department. They do a forecast. And then from the forecast, they have to go to, do they go to the roofer in that project? $20 million? No. So if you're following the flow of money, it never, in that type of situation, it goes to who? Goes to who? The general contractor. So if you're a roofer and you're waiting for the roofing project to come out on that $20 million project, you're going to wait for a long time because it's never going to come out. And so if you follow the flow of money, then your strategy, you go team with the general contractor. So you have to build a relationship with the general contractor, and you have to build a relationship with agencies at the same time. And if you understand the flow of money, then it allows you to develop a different type of strategy. Does that make sense? So for every industry, there's a different flow of money. Well, part of it is they're bundling contracts. So the bundling of contract means that that's constantly happening in the government market because contracting officers don't have a lot of time. And think about this here. They have a stack of projects that they have to put out, right? Let's assume that the typical contracting officer has to put out 500 projects every year. And that's the most they can do. And they have to put out 500 projects, and then their agency is getting more work, and the department supervisor says, hey, you know what, I need you, Leticia, to be able to handle not 500, but to be able to handle 600 projects. And you're working from 8 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you say, how am I going to do 100 more? I don't even have time to do the 500. And so what you're going to do is you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to take all the construction project and I'm going to put it all together. And instead of awarding the roofer to the roofing company, instead of awarding the plumbing to the plumber, I'm going to just award it to a general contractor. I'm going to let them manage all the subcontractors. That's called bundling of contracts. And that's happening in IT, like in the office supplies industry. They bundle into what they call, GSA has a FSSI bundling contract to where they choose like 10 companies and that's it. And these 10 companies, 3 of them might be large companies and the other 7 are small companies. And they sell everything under the sun when it comes to pen, papers, laptop, computers, little things like that a typical office will need is done through a schedule like that there. So it just depends. If you follow the flow of money, part of it is bundling. And so if it's bundling, then you also have to bundle, and that's called you becoming more of a generalist. You have to be a specialist. You have to be good at something. But then you have to start looking more like a GC instead of just a roofing company. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that impacts, follow the money impacts your strategy in the government market. You had a question?
Yeah, there was a solicitation that came out, and it said contracting management at risk.
Mhm.
Is that something similar where they might have a lot of solicitations they have to get out, so they, instead of, how can I put it, they just want to have a contracting manager and they hire a bunch of subs to get this work done. Is that the same concept when they say contracting management at risk?
I don't know specifically for that, but I do know that contracting officers between the second quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, they have a lot of work and they need. It's kind of like the IRS, right? For the bulk of the year, there's not a lot of work as an IRS employee, right? But then from January to May, you're swamped with work. And that's the same thing with CPAs, right? Or for retail stores. They're swamped from November to December. So they have to have seasonal workers. And so in the government world, when it comes to contract management, they have a lot of work towards the second side, the last 2 quarters of the fiscal year. And so they have to go and outsource additional contract support to handle all those contracts so that they can be put out. And so
Is that what that is?
it may be what that is. And I've experienced that in the past with companies working for the government to put out contracts to businesses. So they need more contract support, and that may be what that is. But without knowing the details of it, I think that might be what that is. So understanding industry patterns, all that, I covered that already. Becoming more of a generalist and not a specialist. Now, keep in mind, you have to be a specialist. Like the other company that have 35 NAICS code, that's too broad, right? And so you still want to be, a specialist and good at something, but then you need to slowly expand into different areas, even things that you've never done before. So you're in the medical and the health industry. What's your primary service?
Mental health services.
Okay. So mental health services where you do psych evaluation, you do assessments, training. Okay. So do you know which agency is the best agency for you to work with?
Outside of the
HHS is one. And who
Yeah.
else?
The VA.
The VA, that's one. And who else?
I know that, but different schools that work
That's
with
what I was
the
saying,
Atlanta,
Okay.
public schools, so the
Public school,
systems
school
within
systems,
the
they're good.
counties, and
But think about it from a higher level.
I'm trying.
So,
I'm trying very
so,
hard.
so, because every agency have personnel and they all need some type of evaluation, right?
Yes.
And so if you think about Chris,
DOD?
DOD, that's very important. But there's an agency that manages the personnel in DOD, and that's called OPM, Office of Personnel Management. So OPM is another great agency for you to work with, And there is a agency called US MEPCOM,
And where is that? You said that's with who? Office of Personal?
OPM, Office of Personnel Management.
Office of Personnel.
And there's another smaller sub-agency called US MEPCOM, MEPCOM.
PCOM.
And so these are the agencies that do the evaluation of military personnel before they can go out, because they get recruited, right?
Right.
They have to go through a evaluation. And some of them have to go through training and then eventually to boot camp. And then eventually they get out and then they become a private or an officer in the military. So understanding that, that's all part of you having a strategy.
Okay.
But then if you're doing that there, then you say, you know what? If we're evaluating people, you're in the people business. So if we're evaluating people, then what we really are is we're a staffing company. Because that's a little bit more broad, right? So you go from being a specialist, and all we do is we hire doctors and we hire professionals and PhDs to do evaluations, and we hire a professional who can do training. Then you go from that to a step, because that's already staffing right there, because you're hiring.
And I read that 3 years ago, that was the first, the number one company that made women first-year millionaires, staffing.
So staffing is huge. All government has about 20 million employees. All government, federal, state, and local. Now, the largest commercial companies is Walmart. You know how many employees they have?
Yeah.
About 2 million. So there's still a lot, but when you talk about government agencies, they have the most employees out there. So staffing is huge in the government market. So this here is very important. You start off as a generalist and you become a specialist in the government space. So let me check to see how we're doing. All right, so that's good. So let's continue here. So to be a successful generalist, you may have to rebrand yourself a little bit. So for example, if my company is called Abraham's Janitorial Services of Atlanta, Georgia, what's wrong with that business name? One is too long, and it's I can only do janitorial only in Atlanta, and what else? Just me. It seems like I'm a really small mom and pop business, right? So if you have a name like that or similar to that, you might want to shorten the name. You might want to take your name out of it. You might want to stop putting a city behind it. And so there's some things like that. And we'll talk about branding, later on. But so you have to go through a rebranding so that you can look like you can handle the work. And your business might be too niche. You might have to revamp your marketing literature. That's all part of rebranding, so you can look like you can do work for the government. And you have to look for partners to do things that you're not good at. So if you want to expand into staffing, well, have you done staffing before? A little bit, but not in the way that staffing are done, right?
Right.
And so how do you make money as a true staffing company? Because when you're doing training, most of the time you may not do the training. You go and hire someone who's a specialist. That's staffing. You go hire someone who's a specialist to come and train a specific program, a specific initiative. So you're staffing in that way. Well, true staffing, money is made a little bit differently. Because in that situation, you get paid a certain amount. You get paid $100 an hour. You go hire someone at $50 an hour, and you put them into work. But you get paid a lump fee like that. And so it's instead of an hourly, sometimes they just pay you. We'll give you $3,000 per day to go do training. And then you go pay them $1,000 per day to go do training. Well, staffing, a little bit different. Staffing, you make money by recruiting fees, especially medical staffing.
Okay.
You go hire a nurse, you go hire a doctor in these hard-to-find specialist area. You hire a doctor, they will pay you 10% up to 100% of the 1 year salary. So if it's $300,000 salary, they pay you 10%, $30,000 to place that person. Not bad for just placing somebody, right?
Right.
Now, 10% is on the low side. Renzi, what's the typical staffing fee, Renzi? Renzi, what's the typical staffing fee? 10% is on the low side, right?
Yeah.
For high or hard to find skill sets.
Yeah, more white collar is 33% of the base.
So 33%. So $300,000 salary, you're making $100,000. So
That's a thought, huh?
Yeah, just see my head turning.
and guess what?
And that's one of the things, you do it right one time. You know what I mean? You, of course, you continue to improve and evolve, but you get it right that one time, start building on that.
Now there's a different way of doing staffing though. That's one way of doing staffing, right? The other way of doing staffing is the government says, hey, we've got this medical office here. And it could be the VA or it could be like a health center or something like that. We've got this medical office here, and you're the government contractor. We've had someone there for 5 years, but we need someone else. They put out for bid, and you won the contract. And in that health center, there might be 15 employees. And so you go take over that project, all of a sudden, overnight, you have 15 more employees. And you make profit on everybody's hours. Right? Usually, if you're paying them $100 an hour, you usually mark it up $150 to $200 an hour. So, but why? Because you got to pay overhead. You got your overhead. You also got to pay their benefits and so forth. If you're paying them $100 an hour, that's their salary, or that's their hourly wage. Then you have to mark up, and you got to cover the benefits. And so you normally mark up 50% more, up to 100% more, depending on the industries and some high risk or some high skills area. So staffing is very important, very lucrative. Yeah. So thanks, Renzi. So those are some practical contracting strategy for your business. But again, don't try to be a staffing company right now.
Right.
But knowing that you're positioning yourself to become that. And so you're starting off with what you're good at, but you're expanding. And so you're growing in that way. So you'll need some starter capital. That's part of your strategies. My partner and I, we help a company win a $1.2 million contract in Birmingham, Alabama. And he's so excited. He said, yes, right? And he gets there, and let me give you a little bit more of the narrative on that project. So he's more of a generalist, and so he won this project, and the government was sending military personnel to Birmingham to do training consistently, over and over and over. And when they send people there, they have to stay in hotels. And if you stay in a hotel, you may not be consistently in the same room, right? You might be bounced around this hotel, that room, you're all over. So it's hard for them to manage the personnel. So the military said, okay, you know what? We're going to award a contract to a company, and we want to take an apartment and convert it into short-term military housing. So we want it to be furnished. We want it to be almost treated like a hotel room, because someone's going to go clean it and manage it and do all this stuff here. And so it was $1.2 million a year, and so he won the contract. He went to the apartment complex, pre-negotiate all that, and so when he won the contract, it was just a matter of execution. So he went to the apartment complex and said, okay, I won the contract. Yay! He said, can you get started? Can you furnish it? You know what they said? No. It's your contract. It's not our contract. If we do all this here and you don't pay us, guess what? We're out of luck. So we're not going to go buy all this furniture. We're not going to do the renovation. We're not going to fix this up. You want it to look a certain way, you give us the money, we'll go do it for you. So now we look bad, right? Because we connected him to this contracting officer. It was through a 8A competitive. And it was our word to the contracting officer, say, hey, this company is good. They can do the work. And now he doesn't have $100,000 to get started on a $1.2 million project. Because at that time, I was newer in the government space, and so we didn't know how to think through all this stuff, and we didn't tell people to plan ahead, right? And so we said, oh, man, this is bad for him and bad for us. So, because we have a relationship with government agencies, not that they have any influence, and we don't want to influence government, because our job is to prepare bids so they can be the best for government agencies and contracting officer. and we prepared him, so he was the most qualified in that situation. But it's still our reputation and his livelihood. So we said, what are we going to do to help him? And so we found a clause in the regulations. So this is where reading the FAR pays off, right? So in a construction project, the government is authorized to do an advance if there's some construction. And so we said, hey, this is construction, because he's got to renovate, do all this work. We need money to get the project started. So they put out the money, and he got the project started, and that's how we were able to work around that situation.
What part of the FAR is that?
Was it in construction?
Yeah, there's actually a few different regulations, and I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah.
1% that they will give you towards your mobilization, mobilization is it 10% or?
Depending on which agency and the type of contracts, yes. Generally, most contracts there is not a mobilization money that they will give to you.
Okay.
But construction usually, some construction companies don't do it, but there are allocations for that. And the reason why you don't want to do it is because you look weak. And so you don't want to utilize it unless you absolutely need it. It's better for you to get a line of credit. It's better for you to borrow from friends and family.
Do whatever you have to do. to
Yeah,
yourself
outside
so
of
you
that,
can build,
yeah. Now, on that note, we do have a private fund that will help businesses when you win a contract. Now we have that. Before, we didn't have that. So,
Okay.
question? Huh?
So, on the contract, when you bid on the contract, is there someone on there that shows you what the startup cost would be for that project?
No. There's no,
That would be up to you.
yeah.
And once you kind of go through and see what your,
That's part of your strategy at the beginning.
Okay.
So if you're saying, if you win a project and they say, hey, we've got 2,000 military personnel that goes through Fort Benning every year that needs to be evaluated. Let's assume they say that. Every year, 2,000 military personnel needs to be evaluated. And maybe it's because they're transitioning back to civilian life, or maybe because they're entering into military life, right? And so if you know that, you can say, man, so how many can our doctors see every day? And then we have to pay the salary, because they work and you have to pay them, right, in typically 2 weeks, right? And you have to invoice the government, but the government has about 30 days to pay you. And so you're about 45 days, potentially 45 to 60 days into the project, and you need money. So that's mobilizations. You have to plan that. That's part of the financial strategy, and planning that ahead of time. And we do have mobilization funding available. So that's part of being a member of the association. You have access to that there, and Richard's going to talk more about that tomorrow. And if you have credit score, good credit score, we can show you how you can get a personal business loan, a personal loan up to about $35,000, just 680 or 700 credit score, very easy to get. So if you need help with that, again, see myself or Richard tomorrow, and we'll talk more about that there. And then establishing a business line of credit. So it's not you with your credit, but it's your business line of credit. And there's a great website called creditmakeover.biz, and they slowly teach you how to build your business profile. And so in your business profile, they say, okay, first thing we want you to do is, from these lists of 10 companies out there, go and establish 3 trade lines. One of them is Staples. Why? Because you're going to need paper. You're going to need pens and pencils. Every business needs that, right? So you go and get a Staples business credit card. Not you, but your business. It might be a $500 line, but so they start you like that, simple things like that. You might go to Uline if you do products, right? Uline, they'll give you a business credit card very easily. Maybe a $1,000 business credit card, so you can buy shipping supplies and boxes and those type of things, packaging stuff. And you go do 3, and then once you do 3, then this company will say, okay, now that you've done 3, then we're ready to move you to the next thing. And they move you to the next level of business credits that you can establish, and so forth and so forth. And then eventually you get your Paydex score to 80 or higher, and then you can go and get a business line of credit to where you don't have to personally guarantee the loan anymore. So very great tools there.
How does,
Mhm.
go ahead, I guess I answered that question myself.
What's the question?
I was gonna say, how how do you build from that if you've had a bankruptcy? I guess that would be
Business or personal?
business.
Uh,
Both, I'm sorry.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Like personally, if you have a bankruptcy, after about 2 or 3 years, you can reestablish yourself, and you don't have to wait 7 years anymore.
Okay.
Within a year to after it's been discharged, from the moment it's discharged, within a year you start to build your credit. You start off with a one of those secured credit card and show history again, and you'll be able to get a car, all that stuff. Bankruptcy is not the kiss of death anymore. And the financial industry, especially after 2007, 2008, it wiped out so many people. My company, myself included, we went through that tough time during that time. And so, but we've been able to rebuild and go from, bankruptcy, business bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy. We lost everything during the real estate market crash. So we've been able to rebuild and establish our personal credit, all that stuff. So loan brokers, they're another resource out there. Microloans program, there's some great microloans program. Microloans allow you to borrow typically up to about $50,000 to help your small business. Some of the microloans, you still need to have a little bit of business history. You still need to have a little bit of assets. It's hard to get traditional loans anymore nowadays because there's been so much loss in the past. And so the banking industry have changed quite a bit. And even the SBA, I've heard many people complain to the SBA saying, hey, I can get a small business loan. I need $50,000 to grow my company. And they don't do it until you can prove that you don't need money. Then they want to give it to you, right? Well, at that point, you don't need it anymore. So that's those are some challenging things. But it goes back to building your personal credit. Go to Credit Karma, slowly build your credit. Who here checks their credit every 2-3 months?
Oh, no.
I
Check my
Yes.
every 2 days.
You check it every 2 days?
I be trying to see, make sure my stuff is posting
And that's good. That's good. That's good. Every 2 days is good. So we should learn from you on that. But every 2-3 months is good. If monthly is ideal, but every 2 days may be a little obsessive. But yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
30 days.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to be abnormal to win contracts. Because if you're just doing what everybody else is doing, guess what?
You gonna get
Right.
everybody
99.8%
else gonna-
of businesses don't win contracts. No, 99.5%. So less than 2%, and then half of 1% are winning government contracts. So it's 99.5%. So you have to think differently and do differently. There's other sources. Rich is going to cover the alternative financial. These are just some strategies I'm covering high level today. Leveraging, the different networks that the SBA have and SBA guarantee loans. SBA guarantee loans is helpful. Now, just so that you know, if you're in the 8A program, you can never have had a SBA loan that went into default. So if you've defaulted on an SBA loan and you're not in good standing, they won't allow you to get to the 8A program. Or if you have an IRS tax deficiencies.
Carry it and then
Yeah, you can go back if you want to pay on it and or set up a payment plan. Same thing with the IRS. If you have back taxes, if you set up a payment plan, then you can apply for the 8A. So as long as it's not discharged or you're not in default with your IRS loans. So crowdfunding are some other options. There are some crowdfunding strategies for business owners to where you can actually go and get equity partners in your business. So there's some options like that. And if you want more details, I can tell you more details about that. Angel and VCs, you can go do that as well. And there's some, I've spent a lot of time doing angel and VCs and have raised money multiple times in my career. And so I know a lot about that. So if you want to find more information about that, accelerators are great. In terms of incubator, we're actually setting up an incubator, a government contracted incubator. So we've been consistently planning on that, and so we're very close to setting up a true incubator to where we have an office and business can come and rent out a small space. Instead of working from home, you can come and work from a co-working space and then slowly grow your business that way. And we've helped multiple companies. Even though we didn't have a lot of space, we've incubated at least 2 companies out in here that have gone out there and won millions in government contracts. And so they work from home. I said, hey, come and sit in one of our desks and pay me. One company, they would pay me $200 a month because they had a big office about almost the size of this room here. And it's better than the Regis office, right? Because you go Regis office, there's no one to talk to except you. You come here, you learn government contracting.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. How does that work, like with the Regis, for instance? A lot of their offices are in hub zones.
some of them
How
are,
does that
yes.
work with what some of them are?
The SBA does not like Regis. They won't allow you to use a Regis office as your business office
Is it Regis
for
in
SAM
particular,
purposes.
Or is it for those type of offices?
It's that type of office that the SBA doesn't like, yeah, or SAM doesn't like. SBA doesn't care, but SAM doesn't like that office. So
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
If you got money to spend like that.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's a home office, doesn't matter if it's a Regis office. To me, there's no logical reason, but SAM just doesn't like it. They kick you out, and you have to use their actual different office or your home address.
Because people just rent out the
Well, it is,
addresses
I'm sure that's why. They'll just
Yeah, it may
I
be.
know they just lease out the general address. They'll lease it out for like less than $80 a month.
Yes, 80,
A lot
75
of
bucks.
people have the same address.
It doesn't matter
A
though.
lot of people probably use
See-
the same
They're probably
address.
Yeah,
using
because
it
you're
to get hub
just paying
zone.
just for the address.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there may be different because people might use that to skirt the system and cheat the system a little bit. So, but yeah, we are setting that up. And so other strategies, co-opetition. Where's the word co-opetition comes from? Cooperation and competition, right? So in government contracting, you got to cooperate. Why? Because you need teaming, subcontracting, partners and so forth. But then you always have to remember that they're your competitors. So never fully trust your teaming partner. I'm serious. Never fully trust your team. I have seen many bad relationships happen in the past. One of the companies that we're very close to, she won a $3 million contract. She was in a teaming relationship with a company. She won a $3 million contract. The SBA made an error and sub it out to, or award the contract to her teaming partner, her teaming company. Never told her about it. And they were ready to start performing on it. And somebody from the other company said, hey, you know what? Weren't we working on this project together? What do you know about it? Because we're about to start on the project. And she said, what? And she went to the SBA, and the SBA said, sorry, because we already awarded to the other company. And so at this point here, she had choices, right? She can sue the SBA. She can sue the other company. But she's a small business. She doesn't have $50,000 to hire an attorney for that type of lawsuit. She doesn't have $50,000. And she could, but you know what the SBA said? They said, oh, we know we blew it. And so we will help you how best we can. We can't promise you anything, but we're going to help you so that you can win equal to this or more. So we just say, okay, let the SBA owe you a favor. And since then, she went from, at that time, all she had was a small little $22,000 project. So she went from that. Now she's won multiple $1 million of contracts. So it worked out at the end. But that company that she worked with, that she teamed with, to this day, that company never apologized to her. That company took off with the project and just never looked back.
Wow.
Are they still in business?
Well, they grew out of their 8A, and so hopefully they won't be in business. Now, they're based in Georgia, so anytime you're looking for a teaming partner that's an 8A graduate, check with me first. I'll tell you on this. I'll whisper to you on the side. Well, I'll tell you, they're in construction. So if you're not in construction, don't worry. But if you are in construction and you're trying to team up with an 8A graduate company, check with me first. I'll whisper to you who it is. I'm not gonna badmouth them, but
Wow, they never said anything.
yeah. So yeah. So competition is very important, but at the same time, you gotta watch yourself.
But just Just to go back on it, don't they have teaming agreements that you have to abide by?
Yes,
And-
but
and
guess
legal
what?
bounds?
So
then
what-
that's-
so what do you
that's
do?
where the
Sue?
suing- Okay,
Right?
that's what I got. Yeah, that's where the money's
It's
in
not
suing.
even the paper's written on?
Well,
That's
If
what
you
he's
have the
saying.
money to
Yeah, you
sue
can
it,
sue her.
a
You
lot of
have a
Yeah.
binding agreement,
She-
but
she-
she doesn't
she
wanna
will
spend the
win.
money to sue.
she will win that
That was the
lawsuit,
issue.
It's just another money.
but it costs money to go and sue.
Possibly a relationship. I mean, as far as.
Yeah, and it would have burned her relationship. And we didn't want to create a hostile environment with the SBA in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to think ahead
Yeah.
to see the bigger picture,
Hmm.
but it still was.
So let's wrap it up here. Almost finished here. So you need to put bonding in place. You need to put insurance in place. All those is part of your strategy. You got to get your credit in order. You got to put a quality assurance program in place. If you're in IT, you need to be CMMI, ITEL, using Agile, all these different industry standards. All these things are critical. Safety program. You guys have Trina, you guys have a safety program in place?
Yes.
Awesome. That's good. So all that is part of it. Professional certifications for some industries. If you're a doctor, you need to maintain your continuing education credit. If you're a licensed professional, real estate attorney, attorney, a real estate agent, all these different things require professional certifications and so forth. You got to have an HR strategy. You got to be E-Verify and all these different things.
What if your company is not going, I have the software, and so I was looking at the software and there's like at least 15 steps that pertain to HR. What if you don't plan to have one full-time staff?
You plan to stay small forever? You plan to stay a solopreneur forever?
No, but not right now.
Okay.
I don't plan to,
Yes. So why do you think I put that in there?
it was a part of assessment.
Yes, I put that in there so that you can be exposed to it, and so that when you do need it, you know to come back.
Okay.
Yes. So all that training may not relate to you right now, and some of it doesn't relate to you at all, like some IT stuff in there, right? And so if it doesn't pertain to what you're doing in your industry, then don't worry about it. But the HR stuff will pertain to you, maybe not now, but in the future. So
2 years from now?
yeah. And so the way you do that is you just look at it, reference it. Ah, okay, this is what this is, and then keep moving. So don't get stuck in that place there. Okay, so we did some benchmarking already. So now let's talk about learning Governese for these last session here. So to learn Governese, Chris, you mentioned earlier that you have the software. So the software is really the benchmark of how we teach Governese. ROP, right? And then performance is PCC. So Astronom ROP CC, that's our Goddess of Government Contracting. So that's how it's broken down in a logical way here. So we talk about learning Governese. So you go to education. Now the whole thing is Governese, learning Governese. But you go to Contracting 101. So 7 keys to success in the government market. And in the handout, I put out this presentation for you guys to read through. And so if you go through this here, 7 keys to success in the government market. I'm going to pull this up. So these are, if you don't get much, if you don't remember, hopefully you get a lot out of the boot camp. But if you don't remember much in terms of what's the most important strategies and things that you need to know, remember that relationship is the most important thing. And so of the 7 things here, I list this here in order of importance. So relationship is the most important of how you win contracts. Even though there's a procurement process, it's still a relationship-driven, we're still human beings. And so on the small project, it may not be relationship, but on anything substantial, or if you want to win sole source contract, it's going to come back to relationships. So that's the most critical thing. And then past performance is the second most important thing. Now, if you don't have past performance, does that mean you can't win a contract? No. What do you have to do? Partner with somebody else. Their past performance is part of your past performance through a teaming agreement or a joint venture agreement. And so, or even a subcontractor. If you have a subcontractor, their past performance is treated as your past performance. So you don't always have to be the person that has the experience, or the company more so. And then proposal writing. Learning how to write great proposals, winning proposals, allows you to, notice certification is 4. That's not the most important thing, right? Because if you have a high school degree, what's your potential earning power? Not much, right? If you have a college degree, what's your a 4 years degree, a bachelor's degree? What's the potential earning power? Better, right? But still not great, right? Or if you have a master's degree, a little bit better, right? Or a PhD. Good. But just because you have a PhD, does that mean you're going to be a millionaire?
No.
No. It's a piece of paper. You still have to know what to do with it.
Yes.
And so from importance, the piece of paper, certification, I rank that as 4th. I don't rank that as the most important thing. So a lot of business come and they get the false understanding that, man, I gotta get this 8A, I gotta get this 8A. I have helped companies win a contract with no certification. And so you don't need certification to be successful if you know what you're doing. Large company, right? 80% of a contract goes to large companies. Do they have certifications? No, they don't have certifications. So it's not certifications that's the key, it's relationships, and it's all the other things. Now, as a small business, certification is very vital because it puts you right in front of everybody else. So it's critical in that way, but it's not the most important thing. And then having contract vehicles like GSA, Maytox, IDIQ, all those things are important. Image is important, your brand. And we talked about, not calling my company Abraham's Janitorial Services of Atlanta, Georgia. That brand is not a very good brand. And then registration, which is number 7. And so many other things, but of the 7 key things that you have to do to be successful, relationship is the most important. Now, of these 2 things, there's only really 2 things that you need to do in here to win a contract, though. You know what those 2 things are? To win a contract, you have to be registered, which is number 7, and what else? You don't even need relationship. Write a proposal. That's it. There's only 2 things you got to do, right? Get registered and submit a bid. That's it. But the average business out there, they win 1 out of 22 bids that they submit. Now, how hard is it to write a proposal? Time consuming, right? And you have to think. You got to have a strategy. You got to read the whole solicitation, and then you got to write your response to it. Yeah, and so that's it. So do you have time to do 1 out of 22? Win 1 out of 22? Man, that's hard work. That I would estimate that a typical proposal is going to take about 20 to 30 hours. Wow. I'm not talking about small biz. Small biz like $100,000, $50,000 project. It's just a 15-page, 10-page response. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about anything that's substantial, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, takes a lot of hard work. And you don't have you don't have 2,200 hours writing 22 proposal before you win one. 2,200 hours is half a year's work. So, well, that's actually a year's work because the average person works 2,080 hours a year, 40 hours a week, right? So it's a lot of work. So what we try to do is, the reason why we say image is important, relationship is important, all that allows you to compete in a better way. So instead of winning 1 out of 22, you can start winning 1 out of 10 or maybe 1 out of 5. And one of the companies that we're working with, let me kind of close out with these things here. Bosco Contracting, and this is the company that Danielle helped out. So she was here at the last boot camp 2 months ago, and so she has no certification outside of her GMSDC MB certification. MBA certification, but she has no federal government or commercial or state government certification. So she has no certification. So we're thinking, okay, we need to go after a contract, practice, right? We're just practicing. And so she submitted a project, and she was the lowest price company, lowest bidder, and she qualifies for the project. So they sent her a pre-award, and in a pre-award, they just need to validate certain document before they award you the contract. So on her first one, she looks like she's going to get it. She's about 90% there. And this other company, so this is Bonita. So Bonita, she's out of South Carolina. We started working together. 4 months into it, she won her first contract. It was a $24,000 project. She has no certifications, no nothing. And she won a small little project. And then since then, she won a $229,000 project on her first bid. I mean, $24,000, that was her first bid. Barbara is 68 years old. She's retired from the Atlanta Public School. Her first bid that we submitted, she won a $25,000 project. So our goal is, the reason why you're going through all this training, the reason why you have to invest in yourself is because you don't want to invest the hard way, right? Writing 22 proposals and crushing your finger and hoping to win. You want us to put your infrastructure together, build your brand, and lay the foundation so that you can be